So, when you hear the name Hezbollah, what do you think of? A political party? Maybe a resistance movement? Or a terrorist group? Well, the crazy thing is, it's all of that and a whole lot more. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a side of Hezbollah you have almost certainly never seen. And it all comes from this incredible deep dive investigation by the DEA, one that uncovered a really shocking secret right at the heart of the organization.
Okay, let that sink in for a second. That's a direct quote from a lead investigator in a top-secret U.S. operation. I mean, just that one sentence, it completely flips everything we think we know about Hezbollah upside down. The idea that behind all the politics and ideology, there's this massive, global drug cartel, that changes the entire game. All right, a narco-terrorist organization? So how does that even work? How can a group be a political party in a government and also a global narco-terrorist enterprise? And just so we're clear, when we say narco-terrorist, we're talking about a group that uses drug trafficking to pay for its politically motivated violence. That's the huge question we're going to dig into. But first, let's just look at the Hezbollah everyone thinks they know. Okay, to really get this, you have to understand that Hezbollah wears a lot of different hats. I mean, in Lebanon, they're a major political party. They literally run schools and hospitals. But at the same time, they've got this militia that's way more powerful than the actual Lebanese army. Then you've got the US, which calls them an international terrorist organization. And on top of all that, a lot of people in Beirut are convinced they control the port, where that massive explosion happened in 2020. So it's like they're a government, an army, and this shadowy power all rolled into one. All right, let's get into the good stuff. This is where the story takes a wild turn. Back in the mid-2000s, there was this small team at the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and they just stumbled onto something, a connection so explosive it could have completely redefined the global war on terror. They gave their secret operation a name, Project Cassandra. So it all kicked off with something weird. DEA agents are listening in on wiretaps of Colombian drug cartels, right? And they keep hearing Arabic. Not what you'd expect. Well, that little thread led them to a guy named Shekri Harb. So what do? They send in an undercover agent, a Lebanese-American guy who speaks perfect Arabic, to get inside Harb's crew. And believe it or not, it totally worked. Harb straight up admits he's moving tons of cocaine through Syria and Lebanon, and then he drops the bomb. He says, yeah, I work with Hezbollah. But to really trust the new guy, Harb gives him a little test, a very high-stakes job. And what was the job? Oh, just to launder $20 million in drug money. No big deal, right? Well, the agent pulls it off without a single hitch. In that world, doing something like that makes you a legend. He earned their total trust. He was in. All of a sudden, this link between cocaine and terror wasn't just some theory anymore. The DEA had a man on the inside. But wait a second. To even understand how Hezbollah got big enough to pull something like this off, building a global criminal empire, we gotta rewind the clock. We need to go back to where it all began, in the chaos of the early 1980s. So how did the Party of God get so powerful in the first place? So the group was basically born from the fire of the 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon. And they didn't just show up quietly. They announced their arrival with a string of absolutely devastating attacks. They went after US and French targets, and it all built up to the 1983 Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, an attack that killed 241 American servicemen. They were hijacking planes, taking hostages. This was a totally new and brutal kind of warfare that the world had never really seen before. And at the very heart of their strategy, a strategy funded and trained by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, was this terrifying new tactic: suicide bombing. And look, this wasn't just about violence. It was a psychological weapon. One of the founders basically explained it like this: when your enemy is afraid to die and you're not, you have the ultimate weapon. And their public goal was just as bold. They wanted to create an Islamic republic in Lebanon. And that brings us right back to the central problem here, right? The big contradiction. On one hand, Hezbollah says they're a pious resistance movement fighting for justice. So how do you square that with allegations of running a global cocaine trafficking ring? Well, whenever they're confronted about it, Hezbollah's leaders completely and totally deny it. Their official line is simple: drugs are haram, they're forbidden in Islam, period. They just dismiss all these claims as an American smear campaign, something designed to weaken their cause. They insist they're incorruptible. So you're left wondering, how can both of these things be true at the same time? Well, the source material we looked at brings up this concept from Islamic theology called taqiyya. The basic idea is that it's a kind of, strategic deception.
It says that concealing the truth can be okay if it's for a greater good, like, say, protecting your community or helping your cause succeed. Now, this isn't presented as the answer, but it is raised as one possible way to understand how these two completely opposite realities could exist side by side. And this is really it, right here, the two faces of Hezbollah laid out side by side. On one side, you've got the public image, the righteous resistance, the group that provides social services. But on the other side, you have what the investigation found, a global criminal enterprise. It's an insane contrast, and it makes you ask, which one is the real Hezbollah? Or could they actually be both? So what happened to Project Cassandra? Where did all this lead? I mean, the DEA was this close to their biggest breakthrough ever. Their undercover agent was literally scheduled to meet a top Hezbollah commander. This was the moment the entire criminal network could have been blown wide open. But then, at the last possible second, it all just fell apart. Right before the big meeting, the whole operation was suddenly shut down. And according to the DEA agents who were there, the CIA stepped in and blocked it, talking about turf wars and interagency rivalries. Just like that, the connection to Hezbollah's inner circle was cut. The target vanished. And that undercover agent, the one who had risked his life for years, he was just left out in the cold, dangerously exposed. You know, the evidence that came out of Project Cassandra, it paints a picture of an organization that has absolutely mastered this dangerous double life. It's impossible to put them in a single box. And honestly, that's what makes them so tough and so powerful. The failure of that project meant this Narcoterra pipeline was just left running, and it's a threat that's still out there today. So it leaves us with this final, really unsettling question. How can one organization be a government, an army, and a cartel, all at the same time? And maybe the more important question is, how do you even begin to fight an enemy that wears so many different masks? That, right there, is the paradox of Hezbollah.